السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Inshallah, we're going to start Surah At-Talaq. Surah At-Talaq is, even though there's only 2 pages, there's a lot of tafseer. So today we will manage to do only a portion of the first ayat. Only a portion of the first ayat. So inshallah, let's recite the ayat and then we'll do the translation thoroughly so everyone knows it. Then you can just concentrate on the tafseer. The tafseer will take some time, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها النبي إذا طلقتم النساء فطلقوهن لعدتهن وأحصوا العدة واتقوا الله ربكم لا تخرجوهن من بيوتهن ولا يخرجن إلا أن يأتين بفاحشة مبينة وتلك حدود الله ومن يتعد حدود الله فقد ظلم نفسه لا تدري لعل الله يحدث بعد ذلك أمرا. صدق الله العظيم. This surah is called Surah At-Talaq because it discusses some of the or many of the masail of talaq. And it's Madani, revealed in Medina. As I mentioned this before, that any surah that is mentioned is revealed in, it is Madani, means not that it was revealed in Medina, I apologize. It means that it was revealed after Hijrah. After Hijrah. Because what happened when the Muslims made Hijrah and they went to Medina, that's when most of the ahkam, the rules, the injunctions were revealed. In Makkah Sharif, Allah Ta'ala made the hearts and the minds of the Muslims to be able to grasp the wahi and the revelation. Allah strengthened their hearts and their resolve to be able to take in now what rules they had to apply in their life. So first build their iman. Once their iman was built, now start building Islam, the rules and regulations. And there's a big wisdom behind it, right? There's a big wisdom. If a person becomes Muslim today, you don't just say, you have to do this. Bhag jayega. The first day he'll be like, you know what? It's not for me. It's in anything. You put a kid in school, the first day you just throw everything at him. He's gonna leave. So slowly, gradually. Islam was about it was very gradualization, right? It was gradual bringing Islam into your life. So in the beginning, first 13 years while the Muslims were in Makkah and Islam was being introduced to them, build their iman, build their yaqeen, their conviction, give them proofs of the oneness of Allah, the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the proofs of the afterlife. Allah Ta'ala one beautiful thing about deen is very logical, rational, right? It's not, Islam is, there's no real, what's that word? Dogmas, irrational beliefs in Islam. Alhamdulillah, all the beliefs, major beliefs in Islam, they're all rational, they're all logical. And Allah Ta'ala in the Makki surahs brings rational, logical proof. We like to say Quran Hadith says. If you tell that to a non-Muslim, he's not going to accept that. But the reality is, if you really look into Quran Hadith, Allah brings logical proofs. For example, when people objected that, how do I know there's an afterlife? How can God create something from bones? Allah gave proof throughout the whole Quran, saying, look, doesn't He do that from the dirt? He brings out life in the form of a tree. Doesn't He take an egg which has nothing, it's dead, and from an egg a whole chicken comes out? Isn't that life from the dead? So Allah gives examples in the Quran, logical, rational examples. If you want to call it scientific, you can call it that. So deen is based on daleel, proof. So in the beginning, first 13 years in Makkah, Allah Ta'ala introduced to them Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. Risala, the messengership of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Akhirah, the belief that after you die, there is the permanent life. But once they built their resolve, their iman, and they migrated to Medina, now Islam is to fully be established. And now the rules and regulations started coming down. And guess what? You told Sahaba something, right away, they accepted it. But if you told the same Sahabi 13 years before, they'd have trouble. That's why you have narrations of hadith where Sahaba were drinking and praying salah. They're drinking wine. They're committing zina, fornication. They're bribing, they're doing usury and all these. You'll find narrations like that because this was the Meccan period. When they built their iman and they moved to Medina, now the rules and injunctions, salah, zakat in detail, hajj, hijab, haram and halal, and one of them was nikah and talaq. And so the rules and regulations that were revealed in Medina, even in the Quran, they're very detailed. This is one of those surahs where there's a lot of detail. But Allah Ta'ala, what He does is He builds the principle, fundamental rules in the surah, and the ulama now look at all the ahadith, and they say, okay, now look, let's extract all the rules and regulations. So if someone goes and actually studies the tafseer of the surah, there's a lot of detail. We will go over some of those details, and it will be a little bit academic in this class today, right? It's going to be more of a class than a lecture, because the reality is, talaq is something that most of us don't know much about. We just know that you have to give 3 to the wife to get rid of her, which is extremely wrong, by the way. It's wrong. Many people get married, they don't know what they're jumping into. And we've had so many cases where youngsters, they just get married, they destroy themselves. Elderly people, 5, 6, 7 children, they destroy themselves. And they say and they do such things, they can never get back together. Then the Mufti Sahib is at fault. Why did Mufti Sahib not give the proper fatwa? We're trying to say, look, what you're doing is haram. It doesn't matter how many kids you have. It's haram what you're doing. They say, yeah, you Muftis, we can buy and sell you, and I'll go to another Mufti shopping, fatwa shopping. They don't know the Masail. They don't know the Masail. One youngster beautifully said today, asked him, why don't you sit for today's bayan? He said, Sheikh, I'm not even married yet. You wanted me to learn about talaq? It's interesting, he said that. But the reality is most of us don't know the Masail. There's a lot of deep, intricate Masail. So Allah Ta'ala started with, let's do the translation first thoroughly, and then we'll go into the rules, inshallah. Allah Ta'ala started with, Ya ayyuhan nabi, O Nabi, إِذَا طَلَّقْتُمْ النِّسَاءَ, when you divorce your wives. This is interesting. Why? Because Imam Qurtubi says this. He says, when Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, it generally refers to not Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It's referring to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam to tell the ummah. It's very interesting. Generally, this is Imam Qurtubi's opinion, and it makes sense if you look through the Quran. When he says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, it's Allah telling, O Nabi, give, inform. Because even the word Nabi means the one who's informed. Take this message and inform others. So now this verse is not for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam only. He's being addressed actually to tell the rest of us. That's why in the next line, in the next part, إِذَا طَلَّقْتُمْ, the usage of the Arabic word, if Allah was directly talking to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it would have been إِذَا طَلَّقْتَ, when you divorce your wife or your wives. He said, tum, when you all. This actually gives an indication that what? Allah's not talking to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam directly in the sense that this is for him. He's actually speaking to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to tell all of us. So this ayat is not for him, it's for all of us. Whereas Imam Qurtubi mentions, when Allah says, Ya ayyuha rasul, this refers to only to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So this is very interesting. Everyone understood this? It's very interesting, right? So that's how you know, one person, for example, in the ayat of hijab, Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, tell your wives this. So some modernists, they'll say, well, the wives of the Prophet, they had to stay in their homes. They had to cover up completely. This was talking to his wives, not Muslim women. They didn't understand this masla. They didn't understand. This is what happens when you don't understand tafsir properly, or you just try to read translations on your own and try to learn deen on your own. There's a problem. Anyway, When you divorce your wives, in other words, saying, "Oh Nabi, tell the Muslims when they divorce their wives." Talaq, the word talaq. So talaqtum an-nisaa, women. When you divorce your wives, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ, divorce them, لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, according to their iddah. Iddah. Everyone here has to learn that word. The word iddah, we say it in Urdu, but many of us may not know what it actually is. Iddah is the waiting period. The waiting period of when you give a person, a woman, talaq. When you give her divorce, there's a iddah. She has to observe a iddah. It's a waiting period. There's different periods for different people. Some 3 months, some 3 hayd, some 4 months and 10. There's different periods. We're going to go over all of that. You have to know where you stand. If, or any of us who have family members that give talaq, that you can't just give talaq. It doesn't work. You become sinners. It's sin. It's sin. So you have to know the masail. So first masla is you have to give them talaq according to their period, according to their waiting period. Iddah is not hayd. Hayd is the menstrual period. That's different. Iddah means the waiting period. And then he says, وَأَحْصُ الْعِدَّةِ, and count that waiting period. Count that waiting period. Meaning, you have to take account of when you can give talaq. Is it that time for her to get talaq? Has the time passed of talaq? After giving talaq, has she observed those periods? That's the meaning of ahsul iddah. Count this waiting period. There's a beautiful point of wisdom here. In Islam, you cannot just give talaq. It's haram to actually. It's very sinful. There's detail. We're going to go to the detail. But know this, that you need to know the masail of talaq before giving. And there's a way of giving. If you don't give it that way, you will be sinful. Nowadays, what do we do? Normally, if a person gives talaq, he gets angry, boom. Right there, you were a sinner. Even if you had the right to give her talaq and she deserved it, you're a sinner. Because you didn't do it the proper way. There's a method. It's a process. It's not just something you throw. You can't just throw it at somebody. It doesn't work. You get sin for that. That's why these words are very specific. فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ, give them talaq, لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, according to their waiting period. وَأَحْصُ الْعِدَّةِ, and count that waiting period. What does that mean? That's where you have to go into Tafseer. I'm getting scared because we barely translated and pages and pages left. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ رَبَّكُمْ, and fear Allah your Lord. In other words, if you don't do it, then you're going to get the wrath of Allah Ta'ala. If you don't do it, the talaq, even talaq has to be done properly. Nikah, what happens? There's a process. You can't just go and do nikah. There's a process. There's rules. There's regulations, isn't it? So talaq is also rules and regulations. You don't just throw it at her and that's it. It's done. It doesn't work like that. Even in the world, right? You want to give the official divorce. What happens? There's so much paperwork, whole time thing, right? Going to court, lawyer, so many things, signatures, and then you have the alimony and child support and all these other things. It's a process. It's a process. In Islam also there's a process. So you have to go through due process, otherwise you will be considered a sinner by Allah. Even though the talaq will take place, you're going to be a sinner, even if you are on the right. Now, just going over that line, there's so many rules we have to go over. But I want to finish the translation of the verse. Is that okay? Or should we just stop here and go over the rules? Because there's a lot of rules right here. So the next rule is, لا تخرجوهن, don't take them out, expel them. Khuruj means to go out. لا تخرجوا, don't take them out, min buyutihinna, from their homes. This is another whole rule by itself. When the iddah is observed, when you give talaq, she has to stay in your house. You can't say, get out. It doesn't work like that. That's another sin. And subhanAllah, the beautiful wisdom behind this is what? Maybe you'll get back together. You were probably just stupid and you said the words out of anger. Maybe you'll get back together. That's one of the wisdoms. Besides that, there's other wisdom. I'm just saying. لا تخرجوهن من بيوتهن, don't take them out, expel them from your homes. ولا يخرجن, nor should they leave the homes. Nor should they leave the homes. For women who have been divorced, talaq, and they're observing the divorce, they should not leave the homes. They cannot just say, you know what, he did this and he did that and he said this and he said that, I don't want to live with him anymore, boom, you get out. It doesn't work like that. Will the talaq occur? Yes. But you'll be a sinner because you didn't follow due process. It'll be due process, you didn't follow it. إِلَّا أَن يَأْتِينَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ. This is one exception to the general rule. General rule, she must stay in the house for that waiting period. What's the exception? Unless she commits clearly obscene, immoral acts, shameless behavior. If she's one of those people that's committing zina and fornicating with others, then it's a different story. You get to take her out or let her leave. It's a different story. If that's the reason why the talaq is happening, then it's a different story. Then you don't have to keep her in your house. There's rules. There's more rules. There's a whole lot of rules. I'm just giving you the translation so we understand. And Allah Ta'ala sufficed here. He said, وَتِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ. Hudud, had, limit, boundary. These are the boundaries of Allah. These are the limits. These are the laws placed on you by Allah. وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. The one who exceeds these bounds, the one who exceeds these boundaries, overcrosses the limits of Allah, who, what do they have here? They say, exceeds the limits prescribed by Allah, فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. He's oppressed himself. He's done wrong. He's an oppressor. In other words, he's sinned. Oppressing oneself is another understanding, or basically it's a translation of a person who's a sinner, he oppresses himself. He's done wrong. That's what it means. لا تدري. You don't know. You don't know. لعل الله. May that Allah يحدث بعد ذلك أمرا. He may bring about another situation. You don't know. Right? Follow the process. Maybe Allah will put some khair in there for you. He has something better for you. If you follow due process, good things will come. Allah will put a good result in the end. But if you don't follow due process, there will be harm and there will be damage. Most, if not all Muslims, don't follow due process. And most, if not all Muslims who are divorced, for the rest of their lives, they go through hell. Sahaba divorced too. But they didn't live horrible lives. They lived beautiful lives. Even divorcees, they lived beautiful. They easily got married to another man. Very easy. Many Sahaba, they divorced their wives and the wife went to another Sahabi, got married. Many of them. Marriage wasn't a difficult thing. We made it difficult. Now we follow the Western, the whole model, you know. I like to say, anyway, let me not get into it. I'll get into trouble. So yeah, I like to say this, and women won't like me for saying this, and it's okay. Marriage to this, you know, marrying one, this is a Western bid'ah, Christian bid'ah that we follow. Muslims didn't do that. They always had that, because look, the reality, let's look at reality. And I know women won't like to hear this, but it's a reality. So the reality is not about only men's lust. Right? It's not just that. There are women out there who need spouses, who've been divorced, who have children. Where are they going to go? It's a reality. When a woman falls in that situation, that's when they realize the wisdom behind Allah saying, yes, a man can marry 2 and 3 and 4. Because men can take care of them. Who else is going to take care of them? So a lot of times when a woman falls in that situation, that's when she realizes. Until then, she wants her man to herself, and it's understandable. But Islam is about practicality. Islam is about practicality. The practical reality is there are much more women than men, and when women get widowed or divorced, where are they going to go? Then you know what's going to happen? When you don't allow your husband to marry that second or third or fourth, when there's a need to for the woman, then those women end up fornicating, and it becomes your husband who they're fornicating with. Would you rather have that? Anyway, that's another whole discussion. That's not something we want to go into. What we want to talk about, and I want everyone to take a look at this book when you go home or over the week if you have time, Ma'arif al-Quran by Mufti Shafi Sahib. And he has, like I said in the first verse, there's a good 10 pages of explanation. I'm going to try to summarize it. Very beautifully, he starts off saying, look, marriage is a sacred contract. It is a transaction. It is a contract, right? But it's not like other contracts. Buyur, business transactions, there are rules and regulations, fundamental rules. Allah Ta'ala and Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam have drawn out the fundamental usuli rules in the Quran Hadith. After that, the ulama, they extract all the detailed rules. So you have economy, finance, business, and all this stuff, cryptocurrency, or whatever you want to call it. All these rules are subsidiary rules of the fundamental rules. Okay? So the Quran and Hadith lay out the fundamental rules. Quran, just the fundamental. Don't do riba, for example, right? and a hadith a little bit more, and then the fuqaha expound on the more, Quran doesn't talk much about it. Nikah and talaq, however, the institution of marriage and divorce, because it's a very personal issue, it has to do with society, it's building a society or breaking a society. Allah Ta'ala doesn't just give the fundamental rules, He actually goes into the bylaws of marriage and divorce in the Quran. This is one of those main surahs where He goes into details. Most injunctions in the Quran, Allah doesn't go into details, because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to explain the Quran. Think about it. Salah. Wa aqimus salah. Have you seen anything more than that in the Quran about salah? The Quran just says wa aqimus salah. That's it. Establish salah. In another place they say farka'u wasjudu, make ruku, make sajda. Another place they said be with the people who make sajda. Beyond that, have you ever seen anything else in the Quran concerning salah details? But how much salah details is there? So much. All the hadith, and then the fuqaha come with all these. You know what I'm saying? Even salah doesn't have that much details. Zakat. Bu'atu zakah. Yes, there's a few lines of what zakat or who gets zakat, a little bit detail. But nikah, there's many, many rules and laws. In the Quran, Allah Ta'ala doesn't just talk about fundamental rules, He goes into bylaws, subsidiary rules. Talaq even more. Talaq even more. So this goes to show the importance of we need to know the rules of nikah and talaq before getting married. Our youngsters, I don't think any of them actually study nikah and talaq before getting married. They're just like, when parents want to get married, I found you a beautiful girl, Bismillah. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. And elders are all witness to it, but it's too late. Your sons are already divorced. This is the reality. I'm sorry, but haqiqat is reality. We think we lived a good life. I yelled at my wife and she took it. You know what I'm saying? My kid will also, but you don't realize it's not the same. And what you actually have been doing was also actually wrong. You also didn't follow the deen properly too. We've had, being a person who deals with some of these cases, we've had so many cases of marriage breaking. And wallahi, it's not about you and your wife, it's about the children. They suffer the most. And Allah will ask you on the Day of Judgment, why? Right? This was stupidity. Why didn't you learn about your deen? Why didn't you learn about nikah and talaq before getting married? There's no excuse. Allah will excuse people who forgot, or people who made a mistake and they repented. Allah will not forgive ignorant people, jahil. He's going to ask them, why didn't you learn then? What stopped you from learning? So no one can say, I didn't know. On the Day of Judgment, no one can say what? I didn't know. You can say, why didn't you know? You studied secular education for 30 years. You couldn't study deen for 2 years? You didn't have to study 30 years. 2 years was enough. And now you have ulama that teach you on the weekends and the evenings. No excuse. Second person that won't be excused is the ghafil, the negligent one. Yeah, well, I didn't feel like it, or I was too busy. It's not an excuse. That's not an excuse. So you were too busy, go burn in hell for a while, and when I get free and when I'm not busy, then I'll give you time. Allah will talk to you just like that. You didn't have time to learn my deen? I don't have time for you right now. Get out. That's exactly how Allah Ta'ala will talk to those people who are negligent, ignorant. I didn't know. Why didn't you know? Anyway, so it's very important that we teach ourselves and our children, especially before they get married. If I can't do it because I don't know, send them to the ulama. Ulama have courses on this. Alhamdulillah, Sharia board has a whole the wedding seminar, a marriage seminar, and then they even have, consultation, therapy, all these things. Alhamdulillah, ulama are doing it. And some of them are doing it for free. They're not even taking any money for it. We should actually support these institutions because they're doing our job for us. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm coming back to the point. Marriage is a transaction, just like a business, just like other transactions. However, it's a sacred transaction. It is sacred, it is sacrosanct. In other words, it is something divine. It is from Allah Ta'ala. It is the sunnah of Rasulullah. It's a command of Allah. It's a command of Allah. It is sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So anything that's a command of Allah and the sunnah of Rasulullah, there's a way to do it. You can't just do what you're seeing, You can't just follow whatever you want to, right? I know I've seen some sisters there, when they get married, they'll read books on happy married life. They're reading all these non-Muslim books. All these non-Muslim books, how to raise your children. They're going to all these psychiatrists and they're going to whatever. Read the Quran Hadith. Look at how Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam raised his children and the Sahaba. Read those things. So, one thing is, in every single age, all religions, different religions, whether they follow the monotheistic divine religions of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, they all have this institution of marriage as a sacred institution. It's not just you marry because you need to, or you have to, or you want to, or your family did that, and you have to continue the progeny. No, it's something sacred, something from Allah, a sunnah of Rasulullah, and you have to follow rules. There are guidelines, there are laws. And this is in every religion. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, in terms of monotheistic and divinely revealed celestial religions, even in those that are not, from Hindus to Buddhists to Aryans and Sikhs, Magians and whatever, fire worshippers, star and sun, they all have their rituals and rules. Anywhere you go all over the world, they all have rituals and rules. You don't just get married. There's a whole set of rules and laws. It was always recognized until atheists, right? People get dumber and dumber as we go, right? So now you have these people who don't believe in anything. They get married because the system needs you to get married. So you're in the legal system. There's a legal code and there's rules and laws. But even those rules and laws in America are based on what? Christo-Judaic laws. They're based on religion, right? Based on a whole system. So only nowadays atheists have this attitude that, oh, I get married because of my carnal desires and because I have to follow the legal code. The reason why I'm saying this is unfortunate that our Muslims are falling into the same trap. They're thinking, yeah, I have to get married because I have to make everything legal, the taxes, and yada yada yada. That's not the reason why. So the first thing we have to instill in the minds of our families is marriage is a command of Allah and is a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which means what? Anything that's a command of Allah and sunnah of Rasulullah, there are rules and you must follow them. There's a system and you must follow it. And if you don't, you'll be taken to task. Very important. First, rule number 1. So, one of the reasons why it's very sacred, it's very important, because it is part of our social system, and it solves the problem of what? Or it gives a solution to preserving the human race in a dignified way. We have to continue our progeny, yes? Continue the generations to come, but you have to do it in a dignified, sacred, in a respectable manner, protected manner. Marriage is that institution for it. Now what happens in countries where atheism is the disease, such as America, you have all these people fornicating, and they have no family system, no social structure, everyone is a bastard. I mean, it's not a curse word, it's a literal, everyone is born out of wedlock, and society is immoral. They do the worst possible things. The children, that's number 1. Number 1, that progeny, preserving the human race, goes down. And now what's everyone doing? We don't know if a man is a woman or a woman is a man. This is what happens. This is when you don't follow the divine laws, everything changes. And now we don't know whose kid is whose, which kid is what. And then the human race does not continue. It's havoc. Similarly, what happens? Upbringing of children. Marriage is a sanctified institution where now, because of a good marriage, where you follow the rules and regulations, you'll have good upbringing of children, your future generation is safe. When you take that institution of marriage away, which is a battle that's happening in America as we speak, yes? It's a battle happening in America as we speak. Because atheists, you have a lot of atheists, they're leaving it's a godless community now. So they're leaving that institution of marriage and adopting other things. Men living with men and women living with women, and why do we need to do this and that, and children and abortion. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What are the women saying now? Even in Pakistan, they had it recently. Mere jism mere marzi. My body, my rights. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This is kufr. It is not your body and it is not your rights. Allah's body given to you, you're renting it. And you have no rights. It is Allah's rights on you. You don't follow, you go to Jahannam. Some women like to say, oh, my hijab is my choice. Yeah, it's your choice to go to hell. When people say that, my hijab, my choice. Yeah, it's your choice to go to hell. If you want Allah's Jannah, then Allah's choice is your choice. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يكون هواه تبعا لما جئت به. None of you could be real believers until they make their desires, their wills, their intention, their act in accordance to the will of Allah Ta'ala. Allah will this, that's what I'm going to do. That's what Islam means, right? What does Islam mean? Peace. Peace. That's one of the meanings. It's peace through submission. Submission. I'm ready to follow Allah and His Rasul no matter what. That's Islam. Submission. So when you submit your will to the will of Allah, that's when you're a real Muslim. So next time someone asks you, can you do this? No, Allah told me to do this. I'm supposed to do this. If I don't, it's my weakness of Iman. I'm not wearing my hijab because I'm weak in Iman, but yes, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't have a choice in the matter in the sense that if I want to be a real Muslim, I don't have a choice in the matter. I don't have a choice, meaning I have to follow. If I want to be recently, a few years ago, they took out a commercial. I'm Muslim and I drink. I'm Muslim and I date. I'm Muslim and I'm gay. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You can't be, it's an oxymoron. You can't be Muslim and date. The very definition of being Muslim is you can't date. So if you're dating, you're not really if you think it's okay, then you're not a Muslim actually. If you think it's okay to drink and be a Muslim, meaning it's okay to drink, you're not a Muslim. Yeah, if you're a Muslim and drinking, you can say, I'm not supposed to drink. I'm a weak Muslim. I'm trying my best. Then you're still Muslim. But if you think it's okay that I'm drinking and I'm still Muslim, it's who I am, it's okay, you're not really a Muslim. Because you're defying Allah's commands directly, saying, it's all right, no problem. Another guy said, I'm Muslim and I eat pork. It's trying to what? This whole integration thing, this disease that we have here in America. We're here to make everyone else Muslim. Just say it that way. If someone says, why are you here in America? To tell them to make you Muslim. That's why I'm here. Inshallah, right? So Islam is, in nikah in Islam is not just based on fulfilling or gratifying one's carnal desires. It's to follow this command of this institution of marriage, which is by Allah, command from Allah, and to follow it in accordance to the sunnah, the way, the method, and the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it solves our social problems or sociological problems, such as what? Preserving the human race, number one. Number two, upbringing our children. Upbringing our children. When you take that institution of marriage away, you destroy society. And remember something, Sharia, Islamic law, comes to preserve several things. One of them is human life. And one of the methods of that is marriage. So it's a definite part of the Sharia, Islamic law. If you don't abide by it, then you're not following Islam. And most of us will experience it. Back home in our countries, the whole system was okay, mashallah. There was some morality, the family system existed, family, parents, children, it continued, mashallah. When you came to America, you don't know what's happening here. You have no say over your children. They're gone. Now you're just like, I don't know what to do now. Anyhow, so these laws of nikah and talaq, they've been scattered through the Quran. The most details you'll find in two surahs. One is in Surah Nisa. Surah Nisa refers to women, the chapter of women. In other words, a lot of marital laws are in Surah Nisa. Alhamdulillah, Maulana Mikhail Sahib probably went over all those rules and laws many years ago. So we're not going to go over everything. But another major surah that these are discussed in Surah Talaq. And this is that Surah Talaq. As you've seen, we still haven't started the first verse yet. Because you need to have that introduction before understanding, going into what nikah and what talaq is. So this is the reason also why some call this surah Suratul Nisa as-Sughra, the little Surah Nisa. That's another name for this surah, the little Surah Nisa, because this has to do with a lot of the rules and laws of one portion of Nisa, which is what? Talaq. Surah Nisa discuss nikah, some of talaq, and Surah Talaq will discuss talaq. So when a man and a woman get married, of course, the intention is to establish a permanent relationship till death, even in Jannah. In Jannah, your wife will be your wife over there also, right? Without all the problems. Same for the woman. The husband will be your husband without all the problems, right? Allah Ta'ala, we all know we got problems, but Allah Ta'ala will remove that, inshallah, and make everything at ease over there. But that she will be your destiny over there, right? And so when we get married, the intention is till death do us part. It is the intention. Right? We know Christians say it, we don't say it, but it is the intention. until the end. We want to go all the way through. And not just living together, in deen also, you have to help each other grow. And she's supposed to be your other half, or him supposed to be other half in your deen. It's a completion of your deen. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says in the hadith what? Nikah is what? It's a completion of your deen. Because what? One part of your deen is controlling your desires. And carnal desires is something men and women have. So now when you get married, to control that. One of the biggest sins, two of the biggest sins, what? The tongue and the private part. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, the person who gives me guarantee of the tongue and private part, I give him guarantee of Jannah. And we all know, is the mouth causes the most sin, and for the men, even women, the private part causes the most sin. Right? And so, protecting half of your deen, when you get married, half of those desires are gone. Again, if you marry properly, you follow the rules. Otherwise, we have married men also committing zina. And without blaming, both parties can be blamed. The husband also, the wife also. So it's not just about living together, it's about fulfilling your deen. Yes, fulfilling your deen. It's also about raising the future generation, raising children. So these are some of the objectives of marriage. And so Islam, in every step of the way, gives rules and guidelines. When you get married, do this. In the beginning, do this. In the middle, do this. With your children, do this. It gives guidelines. And we have to learn those guidelines. The whole chapter that we have to study. However, there are instances, there will be instances where the man and woman just are not compatible. Right? There will be. It's not perfect. No one's perfect. And so you're going to get a lot of imperfections, and we have to work with those imperfections. Right? I always like to tell the marrying couple that if you're looking for Mr. Perfect or if you're looking for Mrs. Perfect, it's not going to work. How perfect are you? You look at the mirror yourself. How perfect are you? So if you're looking for that, then you better aim. You better be that too. So if you're looking for that, good luck. Meet your wife in Jannah somewhere. Not here. It's not going to happen. So you have to, balance it out. MashaAllah, she has this many good qualities, a few of these bad qualities. Bismillah, no problem. Right? Man, same thing. He has this many bad qualities, but he has these good qualities. Okay, I'll work with it. And subhanAllah, there's a beauty of our institution of arranged marriage. In Islam, you have arranged marriage. There's no dating and all that stuff. Why? I'll give you the philosophy of it, even though that's not part of the tafsir today. The philosophy of that, Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best, is that when a man, and people don't understand this, when dating, what happens? When people date, what happens? If I'm dating this person, that person will show me their good side. I'm not going to know their bad side. I will also show the person my good side. I'm not going to show them my bad side. So now you end up marrying that person thinking that I'm going to get this good that I've been getting. Not realizing the dirt in the bottom. And when you get married, when you expect all that goodness, now you see the bad. And you only see bad because you already experienced the good. Now all you see is bad. Like, oh my goodness, this is what I got married to? And you don't weigh good versus bad, you just weigh the bad and say, this is horrible. Within, what happened? People dating for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, within a few months they get divorced. Look at all these actors and actresses. That's the worst example. But some of them are, and people in general, right? They're married they're dating for so many years, they get married within a few months, they're done. Because all they see is bad now. But what happens when you don't know the person? When you get married, you don't know anything about the person. You just heard stuff. But now you're getting the good from her, you also get the bad. And now you're able to, say, you know what? She has this bad, but she has this good too. Now you're way between the two. Say, okay, I can work with it. Yes. Gee, you can. But before, if you dated, what happened? You only saw good. Now you wanted the good. When you got married, now you see the bad. And we all know you only know a person when you live with them. Yes. All the satis and buddies you have, you come here, mashallah, assalamu alaikum, Riyaz bhai, how are you? But when you live with the guy, you're like, oh man, this guy snores like a truck, Or this guy, his bathroom is dirty. Look at his eating habits. He's eating like an animal. Or the woman, you're like, my goodness, you look so beautiful, but when you take out your makeup, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So what happens when you're dating, you see the wrong side of it. You see the wrong side of it, and you expect that, and you go into marriage. It's a disaster. But when you don't know the person, subhanallah, when you don't know the person, and you leave it to Allah. Obviously, before marriage, we're supposed to do mashwara, consult everyone, istikhara. Ya Allah, you put khair, you put goodness in this marriage. I don't know what I'm getting into, but you give me the right decision to make. Or if I already made the decision, put khair and goodness in it. And wallahi, I swear to Allah, Whenever I've done istikhara, everything's come out good. I swear to Allah. I'm not saying I do istikhara for everything, but whenever I do, everything comes out perfect. And perfection also, I'm going to tell you something else. I mentioned it before. Perfection doesn't mean there's good results. And I gave this example before, I'm going to give it again. There was a lady who was divorced. And her friends, when they got together, they're like, yo, you're the religious one. You're the religious one. Before you got married, you made all this istikhara, dua, namaz, you put your hijab on, everything. What happened? You got divorced and we're married. So she said, you guys never understood. When I got married, I mentioned the story before. When I got married, I wasn't religious. I wasn't deendar. I was a normal person. I didn't pray. I didn't have my hijab. I didn't read Quran, all this stuff. But when marriage came, then I said, this is something serious in my life, you know? I had to take this seriously. So now I referred back to my deen, my religion, and said, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to make istikhara. I'm supposed to make dua. Okay, let me do that. When I got married, I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy has no deen in his life. He has nothing. He just forget praying. He drinks wine. He forget praying. And that's when I realized I have to change on my own. I cannot rely on someone else. And that's when I started changing my life. I started putting on the hijab. I started reading the Quran. I started making all 5 salah. I started refraining from haram. Stopped going out. And I started fixing my deen. And when I learned my deen, now I realize that I can't even, he's hating me more because he never wanted a religious wife. He wanted to relax and enjoy himself, enjoy his life, you know? And now I'm telling him, pray, why don't you pray? You know, why are you drinking? Stop drinking, these type of things. He doesn't want to hear it. And I can't even get rid of him because what? I can't give talaq. The man has to give talaq, divorce. And subhanAllah, after that, what happens? He gives her divorce. So then she's explaining to her sister friends, she said, look, I made istikhara, I asked Allah to put goodness in my situation. And he did, but in which way? It looked negative, but it was positive. Why? Because it was because of him I became religious. Allahu Akbar. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today. SubhanAllah. So, Allah putting goodness in your decision doesn't always mean that it looks positive, but it will be positive for you. I was going to say something. So yes, before getting married, we have to make istikhara. We ask Allah Ta'ala to put goodness in the marriage. Okay, so despite following the rules, making istikhara, making dua, consulting with everyone, doing things the right way. Many of us try to do that, right? Our kids are our first experiments. By the time we have the 5th kid, we're like, okay, I think I got this now. What happens? We falter, we make mistakes. We try our best, we try again, but a time comes where ultimately some couple will say, look, we can't, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We try our best, we turn to Allah also, but sometimes it happens. Couple says, look, we just can't do it. It cannot go like this. I'm trying my best, you tried your best, it's not working. Let's go to consultation, not working. Therapy is not working. Let's go to the sheikh, it's not working. Let's go to the marriage counseling, it's not working. What are we going to do? So ultimately, alhamdulillah, Islam has that institution where you can divorce the wife. There is divorce. Even this is a mercy because there are other religions, Christianity for example, they don't have this institution of divorce. There is no divorce in Christianity, or at least Roman Catholicism. There's no divorce. But what happens, if you read their history, the men end up finding ways to kill their wives. The women will end up finding ways to kill their husbands. That's the only way out. That's the only way out. According to their sacred rules and laws, their sharia, their law, there is no way out. Once you're married, you're done. Hinduism is another example. Once you tie that, whatever you call it, right? That thing, that's it, you're done. It's a bandhan. It's like, that's it. You're tied to him for the rest of your life. Even when he dies, you have to kill yourself too. You have to burn yourself in the fire. Islam, alhamdulillah, doesn't have that. Islam understands and recognizes and realizes that there will be instances, situations where you have to separate. However, and we're going to finish here. We haven't really started actually, but we're going to finish here. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that the worst thing in Islam that is permissible out of necessity, and he didn't say the worst thing, he said the most hated thing. Allahu Akbar, the words are very harsh. The most hated thing to Allah that's permissible. Of the permissible things, the most hated to Allah is divorce. In other words, that should be the final, last, ending resort. Try out all your options. That should be the final, last resort. You tried everything. أبغض المباحات إلى الله الطلاق. The worst and the most hated, despised thing by Allah that is permissible, again, according to circumstances, is talaq. It's very, very important. We have to understand this. Before we leave, we don't know if we're going to come back next week, is another rule that, or another way of looking at talaq. The way I see it, the way I explain to people who get married, they're like bullets in a gun. You have a gun and you have 3 bullets. Remember this point. When you give her talaq, you shot her. She's crippled. You give her a second shot, she's half gone. And the third bullet, she's dead. Just remember that example. This means you can never marry her again. The reason I say this, people don't know. They think to give talaq, you have to say it 3 times. No. They don't learn the rules. It's actually haram to do that. But what happens? If you shoot the bullets, what happens? Person's dead. You can't say, I made a mistake. I was angry. I couldn't understand my judgment. I had a mental blah, 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 blah. That doesn't work. You shot the gun. She's dead. It doesn't matter if you were mental or you didn't know what you were saying or you were angry. It doesn't matter. Does anyone give talaq while they're happy? Most people, they come to say, I was very angry. So I didn't know what I was saying. If you were angry and you were shooting a gun at a person, what are you going to say? It was a mistake? It's done. She's dead. So once you give 3 talaq to a woman, she's gone. You cannot marry her. Some people like to hold this whole halala thing is also haram. This halala is also haram. So we've had many couples. Old age, 60 years old, 5, 6 children. And he's just boom, 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 talaq. She's done. Doesn't matter how many years you're married to her, how many children you have from her. She's done. You cannot marry her again. So they don't, what do? Kya karenge? Let's live together anyway. It's haram relationship. Every time you see her as a sin, you touch her as a sin. If you have a relationship, you're committing zina. So just remember this rule. I wanted to mention this before leaving, that talaq is not a joke. It is the worst thing to Allah Ta'ala. He hates it, even though it's permissible at times. It's something that is hated by Allah. That's the word he uses. Abghad, most hated, despised, despicable. But it's permitted because of zarurat, necessity. And remember this rule, you don't give talaq by saying 3 times talaq. Number 1, you're a sinner. Number 2, you will lose that woman. You'll never get her back in your life. Okay, inshallah? And next few weeks, we'll just be talking about talaq, inshallah, and this surah. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Please have your samosas, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.